work session to order and come on up. I think introduce. Would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, Neighborhood Services is up. Chris has her attention.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Chris Johansson, Neighborhood Services Director. Today we're going to hear from the Neighborhood Services Department. Going to have each of the administrators kind of go over goals, accomplishments, and things to look forward to next year from our department. So we're hearing from federal funds, neighborhood inspections, property improvement, zoning, and housing. One thing that I just want to mention from the top, homelessness with our homeless policy administrator. Amber Lewis is part of our department. I know we did just have a presentation on homelessness a couple weeks ago, so we will not be covering that today. One thing also to note, there's a lot of different departments we do partner with in the city. Legal is probably one of our biggest partners we have. Goes hand in hand with a lot of our enforcement activities. Also engineering, public works is a big one with their cleanup crews. City clerk's office, a lot of different departments we do work with as we do go through this. So I did want to make sure and mention that as we get started. With that, I know it's going to be lengthy, so we're going to do our best to get through this as quick as we can. But we do have a lot of material. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa Krabs.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm Lisa Krabs, as Chris mentioned, and I'm the Federal Funds Administrator. As the name implies, for the Federal Funds Division, one of our primary duties is to administer the federal entitlement grants that come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. But in addition to that, we also get the opportunity to work with neighborhood associations and work with vacant and blighted properties. And as Chris mentioned, we'll also touch on other collaboration that we do. So the first thing I'll go over is the grant administration of the federal grants. The first one is Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. And that one is the most expansive in how we can use it. We can use it for things like rental rehab, infrastructure and public facilities, public services. That's where we maybe fund operations, for example, for CIS. And then we also have a little bit that goes to the ION program for owner-occupied repairs. With the home program, it's appropriately named. It's for housing. So that can be used for either rental or homeownership, new construction, or rehab. And so on the slide here, we have some pictures. Alley Landing is one where we put some funding into. Varsity Lofts, it's right next to the Varsity Theater. The Beacon Village is an upcoming project. And Casa Vista was a condo association that we were able to assist with some foundation issues. With the metrics that council sees each quarter, we focus on expenditures by quarter and then also development agreements. And this is another example. This is the Klein building on 6th Avenue. And so we were able to gap fund a little bit of it for some affordable housing units. But as you can see, it assisted the whole building and then the community as a whole with all their revitalization going on. The next two grant sources that we administer are the homelessness focused ones. That's the Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, and the Continuum of Care, COC. And so the ESG is really focused on emergency shelter, immediate needs. We can fund things like emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, centralized intake, and HMIS, which is the Homelessness Management Information System. And that's just the database to kind of track where homeless individuals are coming and going from. With the COC program, it's supportive services, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, centralized intake, and also HMIS. Now with these, the metrics that we give to council every quarter are the open subrecipient agreements. And so at any given time, our staff are administering between 15 and 25 different agreements between all the agencies. Right now we're up to about 31, just because we have a couple extra sources that were a one-time funding source. But one thing to note too, in the big picture, we have a larger reporting burden to HUD every year. So if you're interested in more metrics, clients served, things like that, we put out about a 40-page report every spring about the previous year that hits all those metrics. So. The next group, moving past federal grant administration, is neighborhood associations. And so that's where Heather Taminga really built this program out in a different way than we had done it before. When we worked with neighborhoods in the past, it was really planning and helping them implement projects. And she's kind of taken a different path with more of a capacity building for individual leaders in the associations. And so some of the things that are provided, leadership workshops every quarter, a neighborhood toolkit, which there's a picture of that there that we had great assistance with the Public Information Office to build. The Neighborhood Outreach Advisory Committee, NOAC, technical assistance that's tailored to whatever the neighborhood needs. Strategic planning is one she's done a few times. The Party Pod, which is the newest and greatest thing. And then the two metrics that you see every quarter for her programs are retiring, the Block Challenge Grant, and neighborhood grants. The next service that we administer in our group is really property redevelopment, and that's going to take your vacant and blighted properties and move those into a better use. So the programs we have under this group are the Blighted Property Rehab Program, working with tax delinquent properties, and then the Lien Waiver and Release Program. The metrics you see quarterly are tax delinquent properties that were either acquired by the city or disposed of to a developer for rehab or new construction sometimes. And then the tax certificates assigned to affordable housing developers. So that's really taking properties that were delinquent on taxes and getting them into the hands of someone who can make them back on the tax roll again.
Wait, Lisa, are you pulling our leg on that before and after?
No, that one. So that's 29 Hartford on top. Yeah, and that's Ward 4, and then 1713th Street is the bottom one. And there's actually a video on the city's website about the bottom one. I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
So 29 Hartford, what did we end up, what type of subsidy did we give them for that?
Right, I
Do you
think
remember?
I have to go back, but I want to say we initially funded it at like 50,000. We try not to go over 50,000, but things are just so expensive.
Yeah, right.
And then I think we kicked in another 30,000 potentially.
I know there was some additional funding.
Yeah.
But it was
It was-
definitely worth it.
Yeah.
They did a nice job.
They did a very
And they
nice
were
job.
done quickly.
Mhm. Yep.
Whoever they are, I would keep working with them.
It was Eric Quiner.
Okay.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Eric did a very nice job,
Yes.
and it was in a very timely fashion.
Yep.
So
Yep. And then the bottom one is Woods Bibbin, and Trevor is the owner of that company, and we work with him a lot too. He does great work.
So then were those two properties sold, or they
Yeah.
rented out, or what?
Yep. Now they're home ownership.
they're very nice. That 29 is very nice.
And the thing to note about these is that they're usually so entangled with so many special assessments or suspended taxes and things like that. So the market value of homes like this that we encounter is so upside down. That's why we have to intervene, is because nobody's going to just buy this on the market and fix it up themselves, because it's just either so encumbered with, like I said, liens and whatnot, or just hard to get at.
We have an inventory of all the homes that are encumbered with liens and kind of upside down in that manner. I mean, I know we find some of them because there's complaint after
Right.
complaint on them, but are there a bunch of others just sitting out there that are eventually going to end up in that situation because someone is sitting on them? And I mean, because that seems like a tell in terms of the story of how a home declines is
Yep.
people stop paying the taxes first, and
It
it's
absolutely
sitting empty.
is.
And the earlier we intervene in that process, the less expensive it might be to turn things around.
I wouldn't say
Why
we
have
haven't.
an eye on to hopefully intervene.
But the property tax issue, I think, is what you're
Okay.
I think the county has a program that would help if someone
Determine if they're
can't
behind.
pay their taxes, and they'll.
Right. That's the suspended taxes for, go ahead.
I don't know the details, but I know that we've used that program in Ward 1 a couple of times in the last 6 months on vacant properties to speed the process up. somebody on that team knows a lot about it. I'm looking at Dalton because he's the one I've talked to the most about it, but that is the tell. I think you're right, Josh, and
So how does that work with the property tax? Does it, this particular house, did it get waived then by the county? Or
Basically,
do we have to pay
yes.
that before we take the property over?
Right. So what happens in the process is the city is entitled to basically participate in the tax sale process ahead of time before the other bidders get to it. Okay. So we can go in and every June you get a list of all the properties that we're going to ask for the tax sale certificates of. And so with that, then we pluck off about 10 to 15 that are just really, really, really bad in terms of like title opinion and all the things that are against it. And so with those, then we can go, we work with our legal department to do all the noticing and different things like that. And so some of it, we will have to go to the county and ask them to abate it. And so sometimes they just waive whatever is owed to them. We'll waive what's ever owed to us in terms of special assessments and things like that. And then other than that, sometimes we have to ask, like, I know Tess, who works on this in different ways, she's had to go to like check the IRS and different things like that.
Sure.
So there's, I mean,
All of it, utilities, all the
Sure,
different.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
but
our liens are often more than the taxes because, the values are so low, the taxes aren't much. But if we have 3 or 4 cleanups a season,
Right.
They could have $10,000 a year of city.
Right.
And so this tees up well to a couple slides further down. We'll go through the deficient property case type. And so that's a new process that we're going through as a department where we're collaborating with our different divisions. And so that will hopefully get to some of these questions as to how we intervene a little earlier. But I would not say we have an inventory necessarily either.
So are we getting more aggressive on buying up the homes off the tax sale than we have in the past?
We're trying, yeah. So the last year, last season, excuse me. So in June, I think we went after maybe like 70 different certificates, but people do pay their taxes, which is a good thing. So a lot of those came up, and we usually end up with about a third of what we actually ask for.
The Councilmember Coleman's point, I mean, the lien is another piece of
Right.
that, and just tracking at least the ways that, because every lien should be in our system, right? I mean, if it's our lien, so it should be relatively easy for us to have a list of those properties.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the ones we have liens against, I think we can pull a list. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But it feels like there's just a targeted group that could be part of this.
Mm-hmm. And I think
Does-
also, oh, go ahead.
Does our system and the county's system in the preliminary stages talk to each other where we could get a spreadsheet of what is their tax, where are their taxes behind, plus what are the liens, so we can kind of see the total package?
I don't know if they talk to each other necessarily. I'd have to look into that more, but I do know Tess does a lot of research with other help in our department in terms of looking at the list provided by the county, looking at what we have in our system, looking at the things in our other divisions, what they're doing with their properties, consulting with everyone, we map it. So there's an extensive research process that goes into it, but I don't think they talk to each other necessarily. That would probably be a lot easier.
Two different systems.
Lisa, if I could just ask, once you buy it at the tax sale, somebody would come in and buy the home at a tax sale, but they still have to wait like 3 or 4 years, don't they, before we can do anything, because they still have to give the owners or the heirs time to buy it back.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And
So-
who takes care of that while it's in that process?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, probably the city. If it's truly one of those properties that's abandoned, it's probably getting the junk and debris complaints and those things.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify, because I know in Ward 2, I know of several where the owners have died and there's
Right.
no family, there's no one to do anything, and it takes quite a while for it just to hit the tax sale, and then you have to wait, hoping or doing something that the heirs can come back and purchase it. But I know several in Ward 2. it's just ultimately come down to the city.
Right.
But we
Did you
have to
say
wait.
3 years? It can take 3 years.
I think it's 3 or 4.
Yeah, in the code for just a private bidder to go through the process, it's around 3 years. The city has an accelerated process, and that's given to us by the county and the state code. So we do move a little faster. We can, I think, notice within 90 days.
I'm
But-
shocked. This is the
Yeah,
first I've
that's
ever
why-
heard this. I mean, my mouth just dropped to the floor. So I'm trying to figure out who maintains the property
Well, the
for the
city
3 to
itself.
4 years. So they're calling, we maintain that and then we waive all
Potentially.
those fees?
Well, it
Because-
depends on the tax. So I think we're talking about two different things because there's a private bidder and then there's the ones that we bid on as the city. And so there's two different paths. So there's private bidders from across the United States that once they get it, maybe they take care of it if they actually get the deed. But they're holding the certificate usually as an investment rather than an actual like opportunity to get the deed. Whereas the city's looking at it to actually like transform it and turn it into a property that's redeveloped and
But
rehabbed.
that's not why a private developer's buying up the tax sale to redo the property? But he's got to wait 3 years to redo it?
To get the deed, yep.
In my ward, during that 3 years, I think we had 3 vacant houses in this state that burnt down or caught on fire this year, creating lots of hazards for our firefighters. It's a
And
bad
that's the law.
process.
That's the law that we have to follow.
Is that case law or is it
It's
state code?
statutory.
So go up to the Gold Dome and get that changed.
I think we should, I think this is an environment where we could get some traction for.
We can sure try. It's still home ownership, you're taking home ownership instead of.
At the same time, we can continue to lean for cleanup, et cetera, correct? So that when that is finally cleaned up, the ownership, the word escapes me, we can still collect on those fees.
Not if we
We buy
take
it,
it.
we give it up. We just,
And then
That's-
that was my point. For 3 years, then we're just, if we have it, then we just
We're
clean it
mowing,
up for 3 years and then we waive it.
We haven't been expedited.
So ours isn't 3 years.
Yeah, no, we can notice within 90 days. So when we say we're the city and we want to take this tax certificate and we want to change it to a deed, that we have an expedited process of 90
So
days.
that doesn't take 3 years like Councilmember West.
Right, that's the private bidder. That's a private bidder.
That's why we
the
need
investor.
bid
Yeah, that's why we
as
get
can-
involved.
That's why we got.
but most of those, if you look at the tax sales, people out in California, I've got several lots
Right.
in Ward 2, they've never seen the property, they don't know anything
It's just
about it.
investment.
They just bought it for the tax sale, for the
Yep.
tax advantages, and that is it. It is abandoned.
Yeah, that's my understanding is most of the people who participate in the tax sale as private bidders are investors. They don't
From
want to
out
be
of state.
property owners.
That's what we need.
No.
Modify.
All right. So coordination and strategy. So our group is very talented. I'm so lucky to work with the people we work with. And as a result, we've been able to participate in a lot of different projects. And so it's really fun. Things we get to do, intergovernmental alignment. We work with the county and the state, especially when we are layering funds in different projects, but also just planning and participating. Community Land Trust is a great example. The Fair Housing Plan was a great example where we coordinated with other governments. Interdepartmental. So we've come forward before about the Bloomberg Harvard study to address unsheltered homelessness. Engage DSM, Residence Academy, participating with that, the citywide housing strategy, and other just development and projects. And then interdivisional, again, we have a little bit of support going to ION when applicable. Rental housing enhancement program, that was when NID did code updates to the rental program for knockout panels. We did the sister program, I would call it, to fund and help properties with that. Just a little bit of planning around homelessness, just because it's kind of touches all of our work. And then finally, the deficient property case, and that's kind of what I'll touch on in a little bit more in detail about how our department is collaborating with different divisions. The pictures on this screen, the Fremont Street sidewalks, that was a collaboration with Development Services and Engineering, and where we were able to restore historic brick sidewalks. and then the Birdland Sports Courts. And so that was a collaboration with the Parks Department to get those going. I mean,
See, the other way, the brick was all
a
overgrown.
contractor did, yeah.
It was already underneath. They just need to be,
Yeah, they removed it, and then they actually put a concrete sidewalk underneath it to stabilize it so it won't have as much heaving and different things. Yeah. And so just some upcoming plans before we get into the deficient property is that we'll continue to work on the citywide housing strategy implementation with development services, continuing to work on the community land trust, and a new thing on the horizon is boards and commissions training. So coming down the line. So the deficient properties case type, I will give a lot of credit because I get to talk about it, but I didn't do much on it. This is really Dalton and his team, Casey. They did a great job of establishing this and thinking through it with IT and legal. So, but we participate from the federal funds because we have the property redevelopment arm. So the deficient property case type is really more of a precursor to the public nuisance process. And the Blitz on Blight program was great. It did its job with removing a lot of blight and public nuisance properties. But we took a step back and thought, again, with consultation with legal and different groups, realized that there was a larger toolbox and different things to access. So what we've done, we've cross-collaborated with different departments and within our divisions, and we've come up with the deficient properties case type. And again, so what it is, it's a little bit more of a precursor to the public nuisance and acts as an umbrella when there's a problem property with either code compliance issues or vacant, blight, that kind of thing. We establish the deficient property case, and then we evaluate a better path if public nuisance isn't truly the best fit. So I have these three arms here. It could still be a public nuisance. It could still go to property improvement now, which is Dan's division, and then redevelopment, which is within our division. So a little bit more detail here. As we break it out, these are the tools. I would say program name, those are the tools. The program manager is which division it is, and the outcome. And so we're getting more eyes on these problem properties to see if there's a better outcome. With the top two, those are truly just NIDs still operating as usual with their public nuisance process if needed. But they do the first inspection for the deficient property. And then as we meet as a group, about monthly, a little less if not needed, but we meet as a group, and that's where that cross collaboration of different groups is coming in to look at it and say, okay, are there different considerations to think through? For example, is it vacant or is it abandoned? Is it occupied? Is it a rental? Is it a homeowner property? What's the presence and value of any unpaid taxes or assessments? What's the extent of the damage or the deferred maintenance? Is there any historic value or context to this? And is there an ability to rebuild on the lot? Because a lot of times also what we've come across is that some of the lots were very tiny back when it was first built. You can't really rebuild it anymore per our zoning code. So rehab really is probably the only option. So this is, like I said, more of the detail of the different paths that it could go down. Really, if it comes to a change in title where the city's going to take ownership to then dispose of it to a responsible owner, that's where federal funds comes in. And then if there is a person, an engaged owner, or someone we can at least talk to, that's where the property improvement program is utilized and vital to hopefully get an outcome that involves the current owner. So. Since January, we have been meeting, and like I said, about monthly or less often. And so we've really filtered 848 properties through this code case type and have done 811 inspections. So of those that in the past would have probably been a traditional public nuisance, they're going to deficient property now, and we've retired the Blitz on Blight name. 70 of those properties have then been reviewed by the committee, and that's where we're looking for different outcomes if possible. So the NID staff will research permit history, code violations, occupancy, utility billing, whereas our staff, primarily Tess, will look into delinquent taxes or special assessments, if there's any context with a plan that needs to be considered, neighborhood plans, things like that.
So how do we partner like with Rebuilding Together and others? Because I know they
Oh.
came in and they've helped tremendously on some homes that
Absolutely.
I thought would probably end up being on this list and being tore down. And they've had nuisance cases against them where they came in and cleaned it up. So how do we involve them? How does that process work?
Yeah, my division doesn't really work with Rebuilding Together too much. I mean, I know Dan works with them more, and my understanding of their model, it is really more with like an engaged homeowner is how they work together. So, but
do
from what
we give them those cases, or do we have to wait for the homeowner to find that resource on their own and call them? Or does Dan facilitate that?
I might have to let Dan answer that. I'm not,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a really good program.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it depends on the case too,
they
probably.
did some
Yeah.
tremendous work. That was
Absolutely,
just
yeah.
like, wow. And kept people in their homes.
So each year when there's I think it's the home rehabbers or something that releases their 7 buildings endangered.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. We should promote the houses that we're saving and get it. I mean, they get a lot of traction on 7 homes or buildings, I guess buildings that are endangered. We should do something at the same time about what homes that we've saved.
I totally agree. And so Public Information Office has been amazing when it comes to this kind of thing. We have a couple videos. We have a couple videos of the work that we've done. But yeah, we definitely could highlight the houses. Right. That's a great idea. Yeah. We can look into that. Oh. All right. Well, that is my portion. So I'm going to transition it over to Dalton. Unless there's more questions. Thank you.
At 9, he's always available.
I appreciate
Thank you.
that. Yeah, thank you. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Dalton Jacobus. I'm the Neighborhood Inspections Division Administrator. I could speak for like 8 hours about what I've got here, but I'm going to give you closer to what's the elevator pitch on what I'm doing. Anything else you want, I mean, I'm happy to talk about it and take questions and stuff, but under pretty specific direction to keep it brief, right, Scott? So these are the business lines for our, or this is the agenda for what we're going to go through on NID specifically. Our division is broken up into 17 different inspection territories. Those territories are generally organized based off of data from the previous 5 years of code enforcement history and rental inspections. So we try to keep them somewhat balanced on the workflow or on the workload for how much each person's going to have to do. We also try to respect the council wards where possible and the neighborhood association boundaries. It's not always possible, especially the neighborhood associations, but we do try to keep it pretty continuous with who is serving what customers. These are our business lines that we have, and I'm gonna there's a couple others in there that aren't really unique enough to bring up individually, but we view landlords, tenants, private property owners, pretty much anybody that calls us as our customer. You guys are our customers. We work for you, obviously, but at the end of the day, the city's a huge customer service organization, and we view our inspectors as forward-facing customer service representatives for the city. And so we try to be responsive and then build our business lines to deliver results and excellent customer service. So I'm going to first get into our rental inspection program. There's just shy of 33,000 rental units in the city of Des Moines that are licensed. Each of those units has to be inspected every 9 months to 3.5 years, and that's straight out of Chapter 60 in the city code. Average is about 1.5 to 2 years. An inspection takes about a half hour on a single occupancy, or on a multi, it can take several days to complete one single inspection. Data from the 2020 census indicates that just over 39% of Des Moines residents live in some kind of rental housing that is inspected by our staff. So that is 90,000 people that we touch almost every year through this program. So for that reason specifically, this is our primary program. This has to be our focus. Service delivery is very, very important on this one, as it is with all of them. But if we had to prioritize, this is our priority. Here's
rooming. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Rooming house. That would be like some of the Tim's clubs and things like that are affiliation. Let's see, they're not actually tenants, but they're
Tim's clubs.
well. Is that what they are? The AA.
That's so when we come upon those situations, there is language in the code. Generally comes down to what they've got in the bedroom and food preparation, cleaning, and stuff like that. Each of those is kind of different. So when we get applications for those, we review them with zoning to make sure it's appropriate for the neighborhood and the zoning classification.
Under the shared housing zoning?
I can check.
We can bring that back.
Yeah. Whatever it is that we allow through the rental code on the rental housing or the rooming house, number of units is driven by planning and zoning. So if they allow it, we'd allow it, obviously.
With like shared restrooms and that nature.
Yeah. So generally we didn't want to have to get in and update the definition of what is acceptable for zoning classification on rentals every time the zoning code were to change. So we just put in there, you got to comply with zoning code, planning and zoning code. And so if it's in compliance, we would obviously accept it. So here's just some quick figures on the volume that we deal with in NID. Not necessarily shown in these numbers is that each one of those 19,421 rental units, that's somebody going out to the property, checking it for not just life safety, but going out and checking it for cleanliness. And then the code specifically says, I can't remember exactly what, but the code calls out that we're not just there for life safety. We're there to make sure that the rental units aren't a drag on the neighborhood. And we take that pretty seriously. The 9,340 rental inspections conducted, one single inspection can take several days to complete if it's like a 130 unit apartment downtown. So it's kind of hard to quantify exactly how long each of those inspections takes. It can take anywhere from half an hour up to 2 days. So we are just running with the volume, and we love it.
Help me understand this a little better. The rental units, that's going to be a multifamily, the 100-unit multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
That's the unit piece.
Yes.
And so you're saying that can take up to 2 days if it's, 100 units. Although that's maybe not a lot of time that you're in each of those units if it's 2 days, like 10 or 15 minutes in a unit, if that.
Right.
And then it's the rental inspections is every single certificate. So that's the single family home and the multifamily all grouped into that.
Right. Yeah. So on the multis, we ask that the property managers send they have to send at least one person. We won't go into people's units without having a property manager there. On the big ones, we ask that they send two. The first property manager is going to the next unit, unlocking the door, and making sure that people are dressed and decent so we can go in there and do it. The second manager is walking through the unit with our inspector, and when I say walk-in, it's darn near a run in some of these. So they are hustling through these units, especially the downtown ones take a long time.
So if you're running through a unit, how thorough of an inspection can you do?
You'd be surprised.
So you're checking the mechanicals and plumbing,
Mm-hmm.
And just, okay.
Yep. So like the property manager that's unlocking the unit ahead of us, they go in, they start the hot water. Sometimes it can take a minute or two to get hot water to the fixture, right? We got to make sure that there is hot water being serviced to the unit. And so they go in, start the hot water, make sure people are decent, sit there with the door open. We run through, do the inspection. We're not like sprinting, but it is a brisk walk. But yeah, it is pretty thorough. So, and when you get, especially like the large multis, it's usually a very similar floor plan, so you know exactly what you're looking for and where on a lot of those.
Unit built, how are the fees computed?
The fees are computed, the first, I don't remember exactly what it is, but the first 2 units are charged, I think, pretty much a flat rate, and then every unit thereafter is charged a discounted rate, and that was updated last December.
Do we
So-
even come close to covering our time?
We're getting close.
Good.
Yeah, closer. And I've got that coming up here towards the end.
So what is the number one violation, most people that you find?
Smoke detectors.
What was it?
Smoke detectors. Yeah. Which is, like, I don't know, you didn't ask if it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. It's like, you can't check a smoke detector before we come in, man. Really? But, yeah.
And Dalton, isn't there a difference? Like if somebody has a rental and it passes with flying colors, they get a longer rental certificate.
Yes.
Then if there are a lot of deficiencies, then you're in there more, and I think they get a little closer eye. But if somebody has a history of having a really, really good track record, there's not as much for you to look for as there are in some of the others, and it doesn't happen as often, correct?
Right. Right. So single family duplex with no violations, it gets a 3.5-year license. Larger building with a ton of violations, they can go down to 9 months. So just remember, we issue that rental license. It might have already been expired for a month or two by the time it gets issued. We're getting, again, I got some information on that in a minute, but they might get the renewal packet for their next rental license within like 45 days of getting the license that they just got issued. So, I mean, there will be some properties here in town where we're talking to them about the same building. It feels like every couple months. And they do pay. I mean, like, we're not out to chisel people, but we got to cover costs. They pay for that. I mentioned earlier that we're results driven, and we're designed to deliver customer service. So we identified that there was an issue with expired rental licenses across the city, and so we've changed our business practices, changed how we correspond with property owners, changed our timelines on the management side of things, and we are getting far greater rates of compliance much sooner than we had previously. We want that number to be 0. So our goal is 0. I don't know if we'll get there, but we'll get a lot closer than we are now. But I'm pretty proud of where we're going. The rental inspection program it's getting pretty tight. So.
How's the decision made to let a home be inhabited if they're still working to bring a license, a rental certificate up to compliance?
So it's technically unlawful to occupy a rental property without a valid rental business license. So when people ask us, can we keep the tenants there? I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you that it's not lawful to occupy it. But for us to go through Jeff's group and get the writ of removal, we're talking months. So no, they should not be occupying it with an expired rental business license from state code reasons, as far as like collecting rent, rental complaints, evictions. So it's very much in their best interest to get those licenses renewed.
This weekend.
Mm-hmm. That one is all squared away, by the way.
Good.
We're definitely headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's impressive.
When did you start in that position? In your
August of 22.
Yeah.
So
Good
it's
crap.
also, yeah.
Appreciate that.
That was shortly after we adopted the InterGov. So I don't want to keep COVID and InterGov. How many times have you guys heard that? But
A lot.
there was truly like program issues with the software. And so we fixed those. And now we're sitting pretty good. So this is what, Ms. Manwam, this one's in your ward. I should have probably when I give these, I talk to a lot of neighborhood groups. I don't like to talk addresses because I don't talk about the nice stuff that Dan and Lisa do. Ours is all enforcement, and so people get, wait a second, that's my house. It sure is, man. So on the left, you can see they've got plywood blocking windows. They've got rotting siding. Stairs are in disrepair, and on the right, that's what the rental code's designed for. Now it's process. Now, if you got a real keen eye, you can probably look at that time and date stamp up on the top. But yeah. All right, so moving on from our rental inspection program into our code enforcement. So the city has code enforcement in like many different departments and divisions. NID, as you all know, we deal with like what your typical code enforcement is for the city. So junk in the yard, inoperable vehicles, trash, accumulation of uncut vegetation, stuff like that. So what's important to note on our code enforcement side of things is that through all of our enforcement programs, especially on the code enforcement, property owners are afforded due process. And so that is why a lot of our stuff takes time. So we can't just send them a letter. As soon as we know they got that letter, go out there and take care of it. We are required to provide due process. They got to have an opportunity to appeal the cited violation, and then they got to have the ability. This isn't really where we get the complaints from you guys or from our customers, but they got to have the ability to appeal the invoiced costs. And shout out to Laura's office for helping with all the appeals. There's a lot of them, and they do a great job keeping us organized on it. So we do about 3,700 code enforcement cases a year. That is not including our emergency cleanups. We occasionally do emergency cleanups under this code section. If there's one of three things, it's got to be rotting food product, accumulation of animal or human waste, or otherwise hazardous conditions on site. If we do an emergency cleanup, it is solely focused on the items that constitute the emergency. So we won't go out and take absolutely everything. It just has to be the things that are specifically causing the emergency conditions. We'll take care of that, and then we'll send them a notice for all the other stuff. Here's some numbers on our enforcement program from the last 4 years. If we receive a complaint on a property, that complaint gets a case. So if one of you guys, one of our customers, anybody calls in and says, I got a complaint about 123 Main Street, regardless of whether or not we think it's probably a bogus complaint, that complaint gets a case and that case gets an inspection. Everything we do has to be documented. We've been able to achieve significantly higher rates of owner compliance year over year because of pretty persistent follow-up with customers. So we went from 86% to 90%. 90% again, we're at 92% rate of owner compliance on our health and sanitation enforcement. So that's pretty good. Industry standards vary pretty widely on like how long it takes to get something into compliance, like what's acceptable. And the reason for the variation is it's truly like the elected body's appetite for enforcement versus compliance. So we are right now right at 30 days. As you can tell in that third column, we're right at 30 days. Average days of compliance, and I think that's a pretty good sweet spot to be in. Much tighter than that, I think we run the risk of kind of violating due process, but 30 days seems to be the magic number for us.
It's a lot better than 174.
Yeah. And again, we try to be a lot tighter with our data. So like if the case is complied, we need to add a note and close that case. So like these are not things that you guys necessarily care about, but it helps us from a management perspective. Be like, why are some things taking so long? Do we need to change the code? Do we need to train? Do we need to build a better tool? Whatever it is. Again, I'm not going to do no time and date stamp on that one. I'm not going to do addresses, but this is what the health and sanitation enforcement program can accomplish. Now remember, we go after the junk, go after the violations on the property. We don't go after the people. We just abate the violations. So there's nothing criminal about what's going on there. I mean, here's examples of emergency interior cleanup that we did. Obviously, accumulation of human animal waste and garbage. So things that are contaminated with said waste are also removed. Go ahead.
How do you get the calls for the inside?
A lot of them come from like animal control, police,
Okay.
fire,
If
neighbors.
they've gone in and
Yeah.
see, okay.
Yeah. So it's not like I'm strapping on a Tyvek suit and going out there. So huge shout out to Public Works because they're the ones that do all this work. So I'm using like the royal we. We do 3,700 cases a year. Well, I don't do any cases a year. My inspectors do a great job. Public Works does a really good job cleaning them up. So, well, we're working on it. Yeah. Here's another one. So, in 2023, the city took over the nuisance vegetation management program. So, like, I mean, I think you think of it as like the weeds and grass, but you think of it as weeds and grass, but it's really like it's nuisance vegetation. So it can be volunteer trees, it can be poison ivy. It's not grass, it's nuisance vegetation. So 2023, we staffed the program. We did the inspections under the county's authority. County sent the notices. We did the abatements through our contractor. County did the invoices, collected the costs, and gave it to us. The reason we did that is because we couldn't get a new code in place, get it all spun up in like the 3 months that we had. 2024, it was a fully owned city program, so we were focusing on quick turnaround times and meeting the customer expectations on speed. So mission accomplished, got it done. This year, we've been more strategic with the types of violations that we're working, so we get a lot of complaints about stuff like this. If we're going to mow the yard, we're saying that mowing the yard is more important than getting all those trees down around it from like the neighborhood's perspective. So that is the same property. You can see the rock there on the bottom right. Yeah. So you can see the front steps on the left. You can see the front steps going up to the house. And so this year, like you guys approved changing the contract that we have with our abatement contractor, it's for reasons like this. Our average cost of abatement this year has gone up to about $600, and it's because the county typically would not have handled something like that, and we didn't in our first couple of years, so we are now. I would expect that future years, like we're not going to have to do a clearing and grubbing operation like that at that house every year. So we're kind of catching up on sins of the past here.
What can we do to see that we get paid? I recently asked, I don't know if I talked to you or somebody else, but I said, tell me, how much are we spending to do this weed and mowing, and how much are we collecting? And we're not collecting. Those homeowners are not paying us.
Well, we're never going to be at 100% cost recovery, but that's our target. So we've got a pretty tight process down. Do the abatement, send that invoice. If they don't pay, send it to assessment. This nuisance vegetation thing, while the volume is a lot, the costs are a lot, this is a key piece of evidence that we use in the deficient property case type that Lisa kind of mentioned just recently. So it's hard for somebody to make the case that this property is not vacant and abandoned if the city's gone out, mowed it 8 times over the last 2 years. They've never paid the invoice. It's gone to assessment, haven't paid the assessments. Like, these are all things that we are using to build our case for other enforcement action that are kind of bigger picture. So, well, yeah, not something I want to tear down. Yeah,
Right. From the.
no, you would. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think you want to go in, but.
So on the agenda, we have on the fines, there's like a couple that are $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So is that would have been something like this project?
Yes.
Okay.
So for this, like, our contractor brought in a crew of 6 people because the backyard just looked just like that. Brought in a crew of 6 people, rented a chipper, rented 2 box trucks, and then spent 2 days out there chipping it all out.
Somebody is currently living in this house.
Well,
There was.
pending litigation, something like.
Okay.
Did I say that right, Jeff? Okay.
But there's no way we can hold up their income tax return. I know, if I've heard people say if they don't pay their parking tickets, there's something that's held up at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's like a different process through our
But there's
collections.
nothing that we could do to help collect money.
So I don't want to talk about this property too specifically. if we end up waiving $500 in costs on a property, but we get title to it, I don't think that's such a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't waive
Right.
any costs. They all go to Chris Johansson. He kind of makes a decision on it. But like the $1,000 that we might have in illegal dumping and code enforcement and weeds and grass, like that's kind of money well spent to help us build our case and make the neighborhood look good. So our primary focus is to make sure the neighborhood looks good. Shortly after that, get our costs, and if we're not getting our costs, why? So, like that deficient property case that Lisa talked about, we've got a section in there, without getting too technical, we've got a section in there, all the money that they owe us, whether it's weeds and grass or junk and debris or whatever else. Lisa gets in there and Tess gets in there and they add all the assessments that they owe us, all the property taxes that are owed on it. And so we can look at these things and be like, we got this property through a tax sale and we didn't have to pay anything for it or pay very little. The cost of us getting to that point, though, was $10,000 in assessments. So we're not going to just turn around and give this thing away for nothing. And if we do, we got to be able to justify it. So we're going to take a $10,000 hit. It's not really a hit, but if somebody comes to us and says, yeah, we want you to waive the liens on this property or something like that, we can say, well, we didn't get it for nothing because we've been maintaining it for 5 years. So we want something out of it. That's obviously not where I come in. There's a whole lien waiver process, Chris, Lisa. So not at all what you were asking, but like it is bigger picture.
Yep.
Yeah. Bigger picture, not getting the fees does kind of help some of the other cases.
So is it a committee that waives it, or is it just up to Chris or anyone else that can, or Scott or who? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's like a lien waiver release policy and all that, but
Yep.
like we're not just waiving them, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it's
Dalton, to go back to the rental properties, my first volunteer role with the city was on the Housing Appeals Board. And I quickly realized that many of the people who came before Housing Appeals owned multiple properties, number one. Number two, they relied on the city to do their inspections. I'll bet they were never in the buildings. And I always thought that money is the only thing that's going to talk. If landlords aren't going through the buildings before your inspectors do to look at fire extinguisher tags, batteries on smoke detectors, maybe there's a fine, $10 for every smoke detector, $20 for every untagged fire extinguisher, to at least force them to go into their units before the city comes.
We do, so going back to the rental inspection, we do charge a full reinspection. The code allows us to do that, and that's something we've started doing for about 1.5 years now.
But that also takes time. And if the
Yeah.
goal is to make sure there are batteries and tags on fire extinguishers, what can we do to give them an incentive, force an incentive to get it?
The reinspection is it's not cheap. I think it's $79 for the first unit and $39 after that. So it's basically what you're asking for is a fine. We don't really fine people at that point, but we charge them a reinspection, so it's kind of a fine. I got a complaint about it from what I would say is actually a pretty reasonable landlord. Really, you're charging me $79? It's a 9-volt battery. It cost $1. Well, that's a really, really expensive battery, man. So, if we have to track that and then we have to follow up on it and we have to come out and check it, yeah, you're going to pay it. So.
I agree with everything that you're saying in yours. I also think that the city has enough information that we can regulate the quality of the rental by being very public and transparent about rental inspections, arm citizens for being able to check the history of landlords. And if people could check it, use our information to essentially crowdsource the information we have, it would be very instructive to potential tenants to know that they're dealing with a landlord that has not been very true to the code and requirements. And I think that transparency, and we've talked about that before. I mean, I hope we can get to a very easy searchable database where everybody can look to see what rental inspections have been on a house. That's the way you get landlords' attention more than a $75 battery, even if they have a hard time renting their places because they haven't kept them up.
And to that point, we do have, towards the end, one of our accomplishments is setting me up.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
threw that softball.
Yeah. Sorry, Scott. So we do, the NID does the encroachment enforcements. So we enforce on the property. We do not enforce on the people. The active camping, we enforce on the physical violation of the property being where it's not supposed to be without a valid permit or license. So that is what we do. It is in Chapter 102, Article 8. And it takes minimum 7 days for the most part. 7 days from complaint to clean up for us to get compliance. And if there's appeal filed, it can take up to several months, but at least a few weeks. Here is the numbers on our encroachment enforcement program for the last few years. The distinction that you might care about is ENCC versus ENCR. ENCC is just the complaints. Like if we get a complaint, as I mentioned, we need a way to track that complaint and then to track our response to it. So anything homelessness that comes into us, we don't qualify whether or not it's, well, that's not homelessness, that's just a neighbor. If it's illegal occupancy of public property or private property, we start the ENCC. If it is found to be a valid code case on public property, we start at ENCR. So FY26, remember that started in July, and these numbers are good through September 10th. So about 2 months of data, we've got 41 public property code cases, done 181 inspections, first 2 months of this fiscal year, completed 29 cleanups. And just looking at, we've got a very small sample size yet for fiscal year 26, but we do expect the cases to continue to increase on both the encroachment complaints and the encroachment cleanup cases. The silver lining here is that we're finding that the size of the encroachments are smaller under this new ordinance that was adopted about a year ago. And that's just surely because there's not as much time for the accumulation of stuff to get as big as it was. And I'm not necessarily saying good or bad. The numbers are showing that they are smaller. There's more of them, more enforcement in code cases, but smaller code cases. Here's typical timeline for, yeah.
Are you saying, you noted that outside the downtown core, it's 100% complaint based?
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing more complaints than you had in the past?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we're seeing more complaints from the neighborhoods than we did in the past.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Any other questions? So here's a typical timeline for our encroachment enforcement. This is with the appeal, but 24 days is about our expectation if there's an appeal filed, and the data bears that out. Again, thanks to Laura. She's been working with Iowa Department of Inspections, Appeals, and Licensing to get us special hearing dates on the calendar with administrative law judges. And then thanks to Jeff's group for helping us prepare for those hearings.
And so on the appeals, they're appealing, what is the reason they're appealing?
Go ahead, man.
Could be. They could be appealing anything. They could be appealing the factual determination. They could be appealing whether or not there's a legal basis for whatever the complaint was. Oftentimes, the appeals are really designed just to keep a longer period of time, but they don't have to do anything. But they can appeal either facts or law.
Hearings can't take very long, can they? I mean, if there's not a
Like the individual hearing itself is not, I mean, that's not a terribly long hearing itself, but the process is not fast.
the actual hearing.
It's to an hour
Right.
for the actual.
And the outcome is often the same.
The outcome is often the same, and not infrequently the outcome is challenged further.
I wish you said you had a different answer, but okay.
Well,
I wish I did too.
Make his job easier if he had a different answer.
yeah, well, thanks, Jeff. We've got two, what I kind of call them our environmental health programs. So mosquito control, as you guys know, the spray emissions driving around the city in the white pickup trucks and spraying was eliminated from the budget this fiscal year. We did an aerial larvicide drop in the middle of May where our contractor went through and flew a helicopter and dropped little granular pellets over the low-lying areas that typically have standing water during the wet season. The odor control program, we are on the 3rd year of our monitoring contract. Last year, we added 10 more monitors. 5 of those were installed around the WRA, and 5 of them were installed within about a mile or 2 of our primary focus areas so that we can see dissipation of odors as they leave the facilities that we're keeping an eye on. CY25 complaints are down. So this was all compiled early September. September and the first half of October has been kind of rough. We're up to 252 complaints so far this year. This is one of our higher complaint months for what it's worth. But yeah, we were looking really, really good for calendar year 25, and then September and October hit. So,
Well, that's been a very successful public-private partnership.
yeah, it's been working well. I'm not totally sure where it's going to go, but I'll bring you guys back some data here probably before too long on some next steps if you'd like to talk about it.
The smell was noticeable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just the data that we have shows that that's when the winds are shifting. So summertime, we generally get winds out of the northwest, and then the fall, we occasionally get mornings with winds out of the southeast where they blow the odor up into the downtown core. I think that also reviewing the complaints that we got in September and October, I do think that some of the complaints we got are not attributable to our odor, like what we're looking at. Like, I don't know if it's relevant that we get an odor complaint from Allum in Iowa saying it smells like chicken litter. Like, well, I don't think it's probably coming from what we're doing, but thank you. It's a data point, so thank you. You know. All right, so our accomplishments over the last years, we did that fee review and an update, and we increased our fees on the rental inspection side of things by about 15%. We are looking at the fees. So those fees went into effect. It was approved in November, December. It went into effect on February 1st. So we're going to bring it back for incremental updates and adjustments. It might even be an adjustment down if we're over collecting. I don't think we are, but we'll bring it back in the late spring. So we built a new process for our encroachment enforcement ordinance. So not overly popular program, but if what our job is to be the hammer, we're going to be a really well functioning hammer, I guess. We did a complete overhaul of the rental code last year. The majority of the changes were focused on the administrative side of it. So charging for the re-inspections, what we require on the applications, like some of the rooming house stuff that you brought up, those were issues in the past that we've got more or less ironed out now. We have adopted, so back in like September, the city council adopted an ordinance for border area management and maintenance and enforcement. NID primarily handles that now. I mean, we're not doing it in a vacuum, but historically what would have gone to engineering and then public works, we're just handling it. And it's really not that big of a deal for us. Engineering did maybe 100 cases a year, and that's kind of a blip for us. And most of the cases that they were working, we also had cases on those same properties. So truly not a big deal. This is the one Mr. Coleman teed me up for. With the assistance of IT, we built a dashboard for customers to view rental license status and the code enforcement history in their neighborhoods. And then, as Lisa mentioned, we worked with our peers to build and implement the division property program, which has had pretty immense cost savings so far.
We get an annual fee update from Parks and Rec. This is something maybe that your department also ought to be doing annually.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yep. So we did the first one in December of last year, went into effect in February, and I want to have almost a full year of fiscal before I make recommendations on where we ought to go. So I think the plan moving forward is to have it late spring of every year to take effect on July 1st with the new fiscal. Okay. Keep it clean. Upcoming initiatives, I hear this from our customers a lot. You guys Front yard parking and illegal street parking is a major pain point in the neighborhoods. So we're working with Jeff's team right now to figure out a way that NID can be a little more aggressive on that if that's the will of the council, and it'll come to you guys as a potential ordinance amendment, hopefully in the next few months.
Can NID ticket cars? I know years ago there used to be, the city would go, the inspectors would go out like on a Sunday morning or a Saturday night
Yep.
and ticket. Can they still issue tickets or are they not able?
So this is the classic, like technically by the letter of the code, yes. I don't like putting my staff in that position, writing a ticket at 5 o'clock in the morning and having somebody come out and say, I want to know exactly what authority you're doing this under. I don't like it if they can't say it very clearly. Here's what's wrong and here's why you're getting a ticket.
Okay.
So,
And is that something that we're working on?
Yes.
Potentially?
yep.
So that's just illegal front yard parking.
Front yard parking and then junk in the street, junk
Yeah.
parking in the street.
You know.
So,
Now, we have something for trailers now, right? That they can't have trailers in the street?
we do. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, we have something for cars too, but
Yeah, but like a trailer that's just sitting, like a work trailer, can
Yeah.
they just park it in the street?
I don't think so. No.
Right.
No.
Okay.
But that, so like that is something that the police have always enforced on
Yeah.
illegal parking in the street. But that is kind of what we're working on, is tightening up what that is allowed or what's allowed.
Tying it up in the street or tying it up on the property, like the front
Both.
yard? Because there is a massive amount
Oh, yeah.
of people that are doing that.
For sure.
It's-
Both. We're tightening it up on both fronts. We just want to be mindful of like not having conflicts between what we're going to enforce on, what police already can enforce on. But
Okay.
yep.
When will we, late spring, you said that? we'll-
No, hopefully November, like in the next
Okay.
month.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah. So like I hear you. I think I've heard from all of you guys and a ton of our customers that this drives them nuts. So this is a priority for us. We'll figure it out, assuming that we can through state code, letter of the city code.
Okay.
But we're working on it with Jeff's team. Likely going to adopt the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code. There's incremental changes. None of them are going to be substantial for our customers. We're going to activate CSS so that our customers can apply for stuff online, make payments online, kind of join the 21st century here. And then we're getting memorandums of understanding in place with the state of Iowa, potentially, so that we can enforce on DOT right-of-way, 235 bridges, and Department of Administrative Services property, state capitol complex. So,
That's good to hear.
Sure they won't
Because
have a
I give
problem.
a lot of complaints about the,
yeah. Well, me too.
under
Yeah.
the bridges there at University and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then here's my my plug. Thanks to IT for putting this together. A lot of work went into it. You can get on there and check the license status for rental properties. You can check code enforcement history. It doesn't update in real time. So if you turn something into me and you go look at it on the map, you're like, why isn't there a dot on the map? I think it's once a week. But, my last little shameless shout out is I work with Jeff's team in litigation a ton. So like Reagan, Victoria, Luke, Meg. So extremely grateful to the legal team for all their help. Every one of the cases that we touch, we prepare with the legal team in mind that it could or likely will end up in litigation. So they touch thousands of our cases every year. Right.
Good work. Thank you
Yeah, thank
for
you.
everything you do. And thanks to IT for putting this together. This is it's pretty incredible. I'm glad that we finally got somebody that can actually run a website.
This is
Efficiently?
incredible, I think.
Yeah. Yes,
It's
exactly.
nice to have the data.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeesh. It was not 10 minutes. Sorry, man.
It's okay. We had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
City Council Mayor, Dan Grauerholtz, Property Improvement Administrator. We're going to, for the sake of time, we'll hop through this relatively quickly. Property Improvement Division has 6 territories currently. Right now, we're kind of short on staff, so we're hopping around a little bit, but those are our general territories. Kind of divided up by housing density more than anything. As you can see, 6 and 4 are pretty large. A lot of that area is just unhoused. So we look at the roof, gutters, trim, siding, anything on the exterior envelope of that property, including the lot as far as overgrowth. And we do have a lot of collaboration between NID and PID with lawns and overgrowth. They take care of a lot of that for us. Case flow, it goes through that deficient property case type process, starts with that group, it gets reviewed, and inspection is assigned and completed. If there's any violations, a notice is sent out with a 30-day compliance. If it's owner occupied, we also send out ION application with the invitation letter in that. Commercial properties, we refer to OED. That's been a pretty good relationship that we built as well. It's really helpful for small businesses, and there's some services and grants that they have access to that we wouldn't. Reinspection on non-ION properties will take place after that 30 days. And then if it's still in violation, certified notice goes out with an additional 30 days. And that's typically when we start talking about renovation agreements too. We're pretty open to working with people. If they communicate, we can do a renovation agreement to avoid that next step of going to legal, which is the last step of our process. When we have not reached compliance, it gets referred to Jeff's team. Our safety net, I think we've talked a lot about this in the past, but we have a lot of city resources, whether it's Lisa's group or my own, neighborhood group involvement, service organizations, Rebuilding Together, Habitat, those are a couple of our big partners that we work with a lot. Grants and loans, and ION exemption from PMC enforcement. Low income, owner occupied households can earn that exemption from a PMC enforcement, but they have to go through the ION application process. That's how we do the income verification. And then if there's not capacity for ION to service that property, that's where that enforcement exemption will protect that household instead of putting them in a deeper hole.
I've never seen the criteria of the income you have to make to qualify for ION.
80% of the AMI.
Oh, okay. It's 80% AMI.
Yep.
Which is, do we know it? I mean,
for a single family, and this is off the top of my head, it's roughly 62,000 for a single member.
One person living
right.
in them.
Then it goes up, I want to say roughly $5,000 per person, but
okay.
Not studying the chart real recently, and it's updated every year through HUD. We use the HUD's numbers.
Okay.
Our numbers thus far, and since February, now this is back in September, so they've gone up since this, but 634 PMC cases, 305 of those have complied or sold. 69 have gone to the legal department, been referred to legal for enforcement, which is the civil infraction. And then we have 260 properties that are still being monitored, which are in the process. So they're in the workflow process. They might various stages of the case flow. We have 290 vacant properties opened in 2025. The big thing that I'd like to look at is 24 of those properties are now owner occupied instead of sitting there empty, and 11 have become rentals. So that's what we want to see. That's success in my eyes. Plus the 125 licenses that have issued, those are properties that have complied. They've brought the condition up to the point where it passes the property maintenance code inspection and they've paid for the fees. So those are main measures of success. 10 that have sold, typically those we see, they'll switch hands. Most of the time they do start working on those, but there's been a few where they switch hands and really, frankly, nothing's happened. So we continue our enforcement process. Some before and after pictures of maintenance code in action. This is a little car lot on University. I think that's pretty good success there. This is obviously a residential property. This is down on, I want to say this is Southeast 14th. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So since we've started ION, we've served 411 properties. Now, breaking that down by 2025, we have 67 applications that have been approved. There's 5 projects still in process from 23. Those are big projects. Those are our federal funds projects. They take a little longer. They're a lot more in depth. And we have 24, I think that's down to like 7 now though, or 11 from 24 still in process. Year to date is just under $900,000 worth of repairs. Partner contribution, geez, I can't even say it. Contributions, geez, thank you. 116,000. That's largely from Lisa's group, but that is also through our collaborations with Rebuilding Together and Habitat. We're down on our numbers this year, basically because of a decision that I made. Normally we accept proactive applications at the beginning of the year. Rolling out the property maintenance code, I didn't know what to expect. And I wanted to make sure we had room in that safety net to where we didn't have a lot of money allocated to people that come to us as voluntarily, and to where we couldn't help the people that were enforcement on with the property maintenance code. We didn't get as many complaints as I expected, so we didn't use as much money this year as I thought we would for the safety net.
Approved?
That, like, we're denied?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
Is there a common theme as to why they're denied?
More often than not, it's because they're over income.
And do they have to be living in the house?
Yeah, it has to be an owner-occupied home. Yeah.
And so how many are waiting in the queue, like you don't have the money to?
Right now, we don't have any on the waiting list because of that. Our numbers.
Because you were trying to
right. Yeah.
Keep it down. Okay.
Yeah.
9.2 million. So 7.8 of that is city dollars. Am I reading that right, or is there some? So some of it.
Yeah.
City or federal, like.
Right. That if you're looking at the 1.4, that would be from our partners, Lisa's group, Habitat, et cetera. So yeah, that doing the math in my head, yes, roughly the 7.8, whatever would be our own. Yes. Yeah.
Dan, it's probably a good time to go ahead and talk, and don't worry about time at this point. I think we'll delay, if that's okay, the last couple sections. The question earlier about rebuilding together, how that cooperation works, interior, exterior type.
Sure. Rebuilding Together, we do have an MOU with them where we take the properties to them. If we have a property that has anything that's beyond our scope, say that has some interior work, there's some plumbing work, or even if we're at our threshold for what we can cover and it's above and beyond that yet to get a few extra projects done, we reach out to Kimberly and she'll work directly with our inspectors to get that connection with the homeowner set up, and then they have their own contractors that'll go complete that part of the job. It's actually worked out really well for us.
And with Rebuilding Together, the work that they do, there's never a lien put on the homeowner. It is absolutely free. They rely on contributions, and several of our companies in the city have teams that come in and do the work.
Right. There's not an additional lien that we,
Correct.
beyond ours. Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
beyond yours.
Going back to Josh's question, so the 7 million over the last 3 years has came from sales tax dollars? Is that it? So are we getting any type of that repayment then after we go in and we fix the house up and then it like could be sold? Are we getting repaid for that?
We
work
have
we've
gotten
done?
some, yeah. Yeah, typically, they stay in their home.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But,
But
things happen. People pass
someone
away.
passed away.
Someone has, they got to go to they have to move for whatever reason. Under those circumstances, yes, we have recouped some of those costs. I couldn't
So is
tell
there a
you exact-
lien on the property? Once we do this work, do we put like a secondary lien underneath the bank?
We
So when
put-
the house is sold,
Right.
then we're getting
A
paid.
portion of, we put a lien on the property. A portion of that, depending on your AMI, if you're below 50% AMI, the first 30,000 of the 40 is kind of like a 75-25 is forgiven over 5 years.
Okay.
And then the remainder is applied to the back end of the property as far as the lien goes. If you're 81% or higher, it's just a 50-50 split. So, but there's always
So they only have to
something.
repay 50% then. once
Right,
the
the
house
most,
is sold.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I want to
And
clarify.
it's forgiven over 5 years, so it's 1/60th a month. So
Okay.
if they haven't been there that full 5 years, that'll get all divided out and figured out. Yeah.
So we'll go in and do the work. If you live there for 5 years, you don't have to pay back anything.
Not the forgivable portion, because that is dropped off, but you still have the backside of
It's either 25 or
50%,
50%. They
right.
still owe
Okay,
depending on their income.
okay.
And if you want to throw another level
And
on
then the
it,
maximum amount that we're given each property, do we have a
for a straight ion property, it's
Yep.
40,000. That's
Okay.
max.
okay,
Now, we will go up to 100,000 with Lisa's group, and that is a whole nother parameter
Yeah.
for the liens. That's 100% forgiven, but if it's over 50,000, it's over a period of 10 years.
okay.
Below 50 or below is 5 years, but it's 100% forgiven.
But not the
keep
whole
in-
40,000. Is that
My
what you're telling
portion is not.
me? Right, okay.
Right.
I
Might be
keep
more
in
confused
mind
now.
that theoretically, the assessed
That-
values increase. We're improving neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Right.
So when people sell their homes, they should get more money. We should be collecting more in taxes.
We've actually had that happen quite a few times where the work that we have done has put enough equity into that home to where they're able to refinance it, get a better rate, even better their position still. And a lot of times that ends up in a check coming to us too through that refinance process. So,
Okay.
this year, fiscal year for the 2026, fiscal year 2027, we'll be accepting voluntary applications again. This will bring more projects into the ION program. We're going to set numbers to maintain capacity as a safety net. I haven't decided what that split's going to be, but we need to keep some money aside in case we get a lot of compliance issues coming in. Some before and afters. This was a federal funds job. This one was a pretty extensive repair on this property. This is one of our first jobs. It was interesting. There's a lot of trust to be built on this one, to the point where I had pictures of my ID taken and all this type of a thing. It was pretty crazy, but it turned out great. And then some client feedback. As a homeowner, I really appreciate ION program. Literally could not be more happy. And they guided me each and every step of the way. We didn't just get a roof, we got hope and security.
And Dan, one other question. How many of these homes that you're working in are in an Invest DSM neighborhood as opposed to out of an Invest DSM?
Not as many as you would think.
I-
It's really surprising.
Yeah.
I would say each year a handful. We do have an MOU with Invest
That
as
are
well.
in the neighborhood or out of?
That
it?
are in the SIDS.
Okay.
I would say a handful, between 5 and 10 at the most.
I didn't know, I just wondered.
But we have a really good working relationship with Invest where we get with them on a project because they have a different material standard than what we may. So they will either pay for that whole section of that project, or they have just paid the difference to get the, like they like the hardboard versus vinyl siding and things like that. So we work together on that. Then again, they'll take the interior stuff that we wouldn't normally touch. They'll do some of that type of work as well.
Remember, Ward 4 doesn't have Invest DSM, or just a
I know
little, just a
that.
couple streets, but just in case anyone wondered. Thank you.
Thanks for
Clarify
reminding
that
us.
again.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Joe, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know again, in case you
That's
forgot.
what happens when you get redistricted, right?
So if very few are Invest DSM, you're soaking this up. This means probably a lot are in Ward 4.
Yeah, Dan has definitely did some great work in Ward 4.
I have a good team.
In the neighborhood, and I've seen the difference, respectively. I mean, I've got homes that you worked on that are like very, very close.
Not me, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, but
My team.
your group.
We got a good group.
Yeah, and it's been pretty amazing to watch it happen.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
my
that.
whole point behind that is that you're out there working in all of our neighborhoods.
Right.
Citywide.
Yes.
It's a citywide project, so I was just going to say, I've had people call me personally and just want to thank you and your team for the work what a difference it made for them. They're able to stay in their home, and so this investment was well worth it for what we've done for the city, and it is citywide, and your team does a great job, and as does all of the crew, so thank you all
Yeah.
for
And it is
what
a
you do each and every
collaboration
day.
between the divisions too.
Right.
I mean, Dalton's, we all work together, and we have a good relationship there. So we got a good group.
Thank you, Dan. And Mayor and Council, we got the direction through the housing strategy initiatives to try and find additional resources to add to the ION work. So we'll bring that back here hopefully soon, what our options are there. So Mayor and Council, if it's okay, we'll bring back the zoning and housing aspects at a later date. There's no rush for that. I think we had a great conversation this morning on the other topics. I want to give, if it's okay, Nick, just a couple minutes on the timeline for the budget.
I won't bring this up on the screen, but Honorable Mayor and council members, Nick Shaw, Finance Director. I handed out kind of a cover sheet that talks about important dates, as well as gave the upcoming calendars from October through April with what's going on with the budget. Kind of highlight some of the important dates that we have. Obviously, today this is more of the public-facing piece of the budget, where today is the start with the kickoff of this discussion of the timeline and calendar. We go through and we're going to work to do the budget Q&A and the public budget meetings. So we do those 4 ward council wards for those. So we'll have you work with Emily in CMO's office again to try and get those scheduled for those locations. You can kind of see some possible dates that we put on December's calendar on page 4. This kind of lays out the time frame of when we would be issuing the preliminary city manager's recommended budget, early February, and then having a workshop a couple weeks later, mid-February, and then given the different requirements for setting hearing, holding hearing on the different property tax levies, as well as the budget items as well. This comes up with this time frame based off of the current council schedule, as well as what's on the agenda for tonight for approval for the February through April. As you can see, we have to set hearing at the last meeting in February so that we can meet our deadlines of getting the information to Polk County so that they can actually get that on the notice to all property owners with all of the 3 major taxing entities. And then that hearing cannot be made before March 20th. And so that's when we'll hold the hearing in the morning of March 23rd. at 7:30 like we've done in the last couple of years, where it's its only item at that particular meeting. And then we will go with setting the hearing on the the budget items in the evening as well, because it has to be after that property tax hearing piece. That will leave us with a hold hearing of all budget items on April 6th with a backup of the 20th, because all of that is due to the state and the county by the end of April. Yes.
So in December, how many public budget meetings will there be? Will there be 4?
So we were planning for at this time. Yes.
How much will you know at that point for the budget, for the December meetings? Because it felt like there wasn't a lot of information passed along, or
So we don't get final numbers on valuations until usually the first couple days of the calendar year. So January is the first time that we can actually get that. And so we do have some inclination based off of what information we can pull down from the county, as well as trying to figure out some of our key revenue and expense categories that we are working on. We start working on the budget with the biggest component of the expenses. We start that in July already, where we try and pull that existing salary projections and start forecasting what we think that it might look like. So we're already working on some of those numbers, but we don't get those final things until later, based off of the major revenue sources, which is our property taxes.
well,
So
it felt like, at least I think. See, did I go to 2 or 3 of the meetings last year? Some of them, there were more staff people there than the public.
I think that there was actually an improvement last year in comparison to other years, except for the one that was on a Saturday that the storm was.
Well, I mean, I will say, in terms of what I would like to see, we had major budget decisions, and we were in a position that we weren't in before, and none of that was reflected in the public budget meetings. The public budget meetings
In the December meetings.
They
Yep.
were a 101. So if you were someone who had been to a budget meeting the year before, you didn't really get anything out of last year's budget meetings, when we were in a year that was where public input would have been particularly important because of the challenges we face. And given that we expect budgets to be challenging going forward, it would, I think, be helpful to illuminate some of the trade-offs that we as a body are having to grapple with ourselves in these public meetings, so that the public can be informed and can weigh in on, don't make decision X, make decision Y. That's, I think, what people come to these expecting. And
I agree with you, Josh.
100%.
I do too.
We should wait then,
Well, no, we,
I don't know.
we need,
Or
we
you
need, we need some information.
then we have to
We-
wait.
We need some information of, I feel like, okay, we're going to be able to do this, or we're going to be able to do that. That's going to be your choice. And so we as a body going to need that, but also our residents are going to need to know that also, so they can give us feedback of the decision we need to make.
I think we're in agreement, so then it's what is the best timing to do that?
Well,
So we get the most,
the first part of December, unless we have pressure points that we know are going to be like, you know, we had to make cuts, and none of the cuts that we made, whether it been Birdland or sustainability, none of those were brought to the public last year. And so we need to make sure.
Not in
Not in December,
Not in
but we
February.
did do additional budget meetings after that.
Yeah, well, okay. That's-
okay, so from a staff standpoint, in order to get that input, what is the best timing to do that? So if December people, if we're not going to be able to give that information, then is there more meetings later that we should, in January?
Well, in December, are you going to
That's-
educate us on these are what we've got to weigh out, you know, and give us some information before you give it to the public? Or
Or I
how
get it in a text message.
I mean,
Yeah.
we are, like, there's some very there's some very clear budget priority questions that we have. We, the city, voted for transit, which means if we want to fulfill our, what I think is an obligation for fire, we either have to cut millions or do a tax increase. I mean, that's something that we should get input in, because we know that at the very beginning, and the rest of it is silly to talk about all the little numbers if the council isn't going to decide that we're going to do millions and millions of cuts, or we're going to have a significant tax increase.
And the big
So if I could-
picture issues can be identified in December.
For sure.
So that's.
Right now, they can.
So
what
I'm
you're
hearing,
asking.
so I'm hearing a two-step process. We would keep the meetings in December and the wards. We would, and Nick and I have talked about this, reduce the educational portion to 10 or 15 minutes for those that maybe are not familiar with the process of city budgeting, and then dive into some priority exercises to get input from the public that maybe, and there are some more fun activities where they get to make choices
Right.
of how resources might get divvied up between service levels and things of that nature.
And I think it ought to be out
timing,
there.
yep.
Hey, we need more fire stations, but in order to do that, we're going to have to cut somewhere else. What are our choices? I remember years ago when council, we met for like half day at a time. And we'd talk about, here's the budget, here, what's important to you.
What's our priorities?
What's important, and that hasn't happened.
We haven't been in such a budget crunch too, so.
It doesn't matter if we're
Yeah.
in a budget crunch or not. The residents
Well,
need to know
yeah.
what their money's going for.
We're in a budget crunch, coupled by the fact that we've already raised taxes on our citizens more than we have in a decade from this table for transit. So the appetite for a tax increase might be very little, given that the council increased the tax on garbage, increased the tax on sanitary sewer, increased the tax on stormwater sewer, doubled the transit investment, and that more than doubled the tax on our citizens. Like, the appetite is going to be very low for a tax increase, which means the decision to fund transit is going to spiral into what I think will be the most significant service cuts that we've had in a decade or two.
But, well, I mean,
At least.
like, let's be honest about that framing, because those dollars can't be used for anything else.
They can be used for property tax cuts.
They can be used to cut the DART tax levy, which.
Right.
Which
That cut
means-
could fund the fire stations.
Which means they could be used to cut transit service. The DART levy,
We're
DART
doubling
levy-
our funds to DART, and we're getting transit cuts anyway. You know that. Half the streets served in Ward 1 are not going to have transit service next year that had it this year.
yeah, some of this is the way that it was done, the fact that it was delayed and that we didn't build a reserve, and that was a choice of this council that some folks pushed. We could have had a fund where we didn't have to cut the 10% of the budget that we did over at DART if we would have acted. You know, we knew 2 years ago that we were going to need to fill the gap with the franchise fee.
All the more reason to start in December
Okay.
and begin talking about priorities.
The higher
Right,
level.
so the message is that we want to start with a more informed discussion in December, that we have more interaction with the public.
Do we have to
Is
wait
that-
until December? I mean, you guys have preliminary numbers. Those numbers aren't going
Yeah,
to change.
but-
We need to set up some times where we can get together.
I'm saying for the public meetings, this is what we're trying to schedule here
Are
today.
we going to have
So-
like a half-day workshops before that?
I need to be able to
let
go
me-
out and tell people,
Okay.
hey, this
Let-
is what's happening.
Sure. And again, two-step process here. You may recall that a year ago with the legislative changes, I talked about a good year, bad year cycle. And we went through the bad year last cycle. So the anticipation is, and nothing's changed in the projections that we've seen to date, this will be a status quo budget for the most part. But we're going to anticipate that the following cycle will be a bad year, so it is worth the time to talk long-term. There will have to be service level impacts or additional taxes, right? And so we will start that conversation with this cycle, but understand we are not looking at cuts like we did last year for this cycle. This is the good year that will be more status quo, not that we can add a lot.
Anything
But
status
then next
quo?
year, we have to
Okay.
do twice as much cuts.
And we still have to
Right.
prioritize.
Okay, we're trying to set the schedule for like the public. We can have more discussion on what we're doing for meetings to start with.
My
And this
point
thing.
is, and I think Chris said it, that we need to prioritize what we're doing. We have information that we need additional fire stations on the south side. And with that, that's going to mean additional funding to build it and additional staffing. So there is I don't care if it's a good year or a bad year, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to spend that money through the bad years and through the good years. And I want to know how we're going to do that this year. Not
I
keep
agree.
kicking the can down the road like we've done, well, why we're in this position right now, as far as a fire station, because we have kicked the can down the road. Our response times have been horrible for the last 10 years, if not longer. And we finally get to the objective, oh, well, you need a different fire station, and you need additional fire stations on the south side, and we need to move them around, and we need to do this. Well, we didn't plan that for 10 years. So now we know we have to do it. Now we're obligated to do it. So how are we going to do it?
Yeah, so we have been building new fire stations, and clearly the message I've received is that we're not doing that fast enough. And so that will be part of the discussion that we can have in December with
Your
the
response
public.
times aren't good enough. I mean,
So-
you've seen that. I don't know if your chief did in court.
So we will have that as part of the priority discussions in the first set of discussions in December.
But something's going to have to be cut.
Okay, so
Yes,
have to-
eventually, we would have service level impacts.
Mayor, you have.
could we just, okay, we will ask the manager and the financial director to come back with us with a timeline. If the council wants to meet before, I think we're hearing that we need more opportunity and more discussion, so we can reevaluate the calendar. The biggest thing was to try to figure out what do we do so we can have the public input, at what point and what time do we have it, so it's the best opportunity to get the actual input. But I think we will come back if you want to bring back a schedule, and then we can see if that's what people agree to.
And that will include what the purpose of those meetings are, so we
Right.
get high-level input from the public with comparisons. We can do that.
Well, I think that it needs to come to us first so we can give
That-
what we think our residents who we represent,
that's what
what the priorities are. Then you can go out to the
That's what
neighborhoods.
I asked, that they bring forward the schedule that would include what we need to do for the
So we're going to have
early
like
meetings.
option A or option B. Hey, if you want to do this, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah, but that's what, they need to bring back the schedule and with
Maybe more than
those.
two.
Yeah, it might be more than 2 or 3, but
So-
we need to sit down and have options first in front of us with your recommendation, with your staff's recommendation, and then we need to be able to, we know what our residents want. We're in our neighborhood meetings, they're in our ear all the time. We know what they're looking for, what their priorities are going to be. And I can tell you, it's probably not going to be a tax increase.
Okay, we're going to come back with a schedule for input and a reworking of what the schedule is for the council and for the public
There's going to be
to
4
get the
votes. It's
best.
going to be the people that voted for the transit.
Okay? So with that,
Yep. I just wanted to highlight the ones
Oh,
that we
sorry.
had. No, that's fine. I just wanted to highlight the meetings that we have to do to comply with what needs to be submitted to the county and to the state.
Yeah, we got that at the end.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how we're going to get there first, and I don't think.
With a multi-year.
I don't think that first part of your calendar probably needs a little bit different attention.
well, that's what I think we've got the message on that. So with that, I believe this work session is over, and we will reconvene, I think it's at 4:55 or 5 o'clock is our regular meeting this afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you.